which person takes care of which kind of activity? In general, not family. If you are two friends and you want to do a project, and you want to divide the work between these two people. Don't say money. Make it more general. You're right, but make it more general. Instead of expertise, I call it productivity. So the more productive you are, so you tend to take care of that job with a higher proportion. Right? So even in a project, if someone is a better programmer, the other one is a better report writer, you say, okay, you do the programming, I do the report writing. And come to family. So the family at the end should make money and should wash the dishes or cook and take care of the children. Oh, he's always. That's also. Okay, keep this framework. So the one who is more productive in doing one type of work will spend more time on that kind of responsibility. Having this in mind, let's see which theories can help us understand the previous trend. Okay. The first theory, some controversy in the next slide, prepare for that. The first simple. It's the leisure time. They have ordered me to stay. So the first obvious explanation comes to mind. If there is a gap between the salary of female and male workers in the market, what happens so suppose you are two people with almost the same ability to do the housework. Forget about that maybe ladies are better for some type of work and men are better. Suppose that they are equal in terms of the housework. But if the salary is different outside, what's the result of this optimization problem? The one works more in the market, the other stays more at home. Because if I work 10 hours outside, I may earn $200 and my wife cooks. If she goes out, she earns $150, I cook. At the end, we have the food the same, but the salary is different. So the immediate implication is that if there is a gap in the wage, the one who earns more tries to work more outside.
And the food sucks.
And the food sucks.
Yeah.
Because the lady made it, or what?
Because the lady did not make it.
Oh, you're talking about ladies who are more productive. So if there is such a gap, we see the traditional form of division of the work in the families. But what happens over time is this gap is shrinking. We see a smaller and smaller gap. I will show you the graphs for two countries. Next slide. And empirical estimations give us a very interesting result. So most of you are engineers. You have a different definition for elasticity than us economists. So elasticity for us is how much you change one variable if the other variable changes a little bit. So this means if the wage goes up, how many more hours are you going to work in the market? Think of very, very simple one. So this case, for the women, if the wage goes up by 1 unit, the labor market supply will go up by 0.78. For male, it's only 0.08. So this simply means that the reaction of female labor to increase in their salary is much higher than men. And it's not surprising. It's a very simple phenomenon. Because the men are already in the market. They have their own room for working more. But most of the women are at home, so they have this degrees of freedom to decide between staying at home and going outside. Thus, they are more responsive to these changes. And we see, okay, over time, this is the ratio of female to male wage ratio. So they take people with the same qualifications, so they go and look at the salary of university professors, I don't know, pilots and policewomen, women, engineers, etc. Keep these characteristics fixed, and they just look at what's the difference between the salary of male and female in the same profession. And you see at the beginning of 60s, it was almost half. So on average, women make half of men. And now it's reaching 0.8, something like that. So the gap is becoming smaller and smaller. So you change the gap, think of this optimization problem again, you tend to move more into market from the woman's side. So they work more in the market. This is the simple, obvious one. And this is a global trend. If you look at most of the countries, it's the same. But now I want to have a digression and try to elaborate this wage gap a little bit more. This is a controversial one. So question, why there is a gap between women and men per hour salary or the average income? What do you think?
Demand.
What do you mean by demand?
I mean, percentage of the men working outside is more acceptable or more they are wanted to work outside
Okay.
from the companies
Okay.
comparing to the women labor. So when the number of the man labor
Mhm.
doesn't change,
Okay.
it means that they are more wanted and they pay more than comparing to the
Why
women.
no, we have to take the question one step further. Why companies want to pay more to men than women?
Are they supposed to do that by the government?
Yeah, these are the things we will start talking in the next slide.
No,
But
their clients, I thought you were talking about this, their clients expect them to hire men. Like, if they have, they're required to provide service for their clients.
right.
Their clients, if their clients are biased, then
Okay.
they have to hire more men, right?
Why the client should be biased?
It's a social element.
That's the second element we will talk about that, which is very, very controversial. Okay,
So you think men are not?
I have no position on that. I'm just saying possible explanations. Of course, you can have a feminist reading of the history, and then that gives you a feminist Marxist reading is rich enough to give you some explanations. A market-based one gives a completely different one, and I guess each of them has some points in them. So I'm giving more a market-based one. So the first explanation would be that the human capital for women is lower than men. This is a theory or a hypothesis which can be tested easily. Just go and take sample, see whether the GPA of female workers are lower than men, if their total number of education is lower, if all these measures you can take. But this could be one rough measure of human capital. And this human capital may have one explicit element, which is education, or an implicit element, which is experience. This is more difficult to capture. And now comes the difficulty. I believe no statistical test can tell us whether there is a discrimination or it's fair. So what we observe is that the salary between men and women are different. This is obvious. This is stylus fact. You can see it in answer. But whether this is because of discrimination or this is fair, I'm saying that we cannot identify it from statistical tests. Why? Because to do that, we have to have a pool of samples, say, okay, I'm regressing the I hope everybody is familiar with regression. It's not. I'm regressing the wage on education, experience, degrees, all these things, yeah, GPA and so on. And then I put a dummy there for being men or women. If the coefficient in front of the gender is significant, it says that there is something apart from all these explanatory variables which still explains the wage. And that could be the element of gender bias. But whether this gender bias is because of discrimination or because what we call it in economics, unobserved factors, it's not easy to test. So we can observe degree and experience, but we cannot observe a lot of other things which indeed determines the productivity of the person, but cannot be captured by questionnaire and data and so on. You can think of many examples of it.
But how do you define fairness?